Oh, shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And look at that smiling punim in front of us, because God knows we need smiles right now.
There it
If God knows anything, He does know that. So here's the deal. Let me tell you about this man in front of us. He has done tons of TV. He's the author even of his autobiography, Bruce, My Adventures in the Skin Trade. He also
is.
even made a documentary about this man because he wrote for the Academy Awards for 25 years. He had an off-Broadway show. He was even a replacement Edna on Broadway in the musical Hairspray, but he got his real start basically writing comedy for TV. He's a comical person, this man, Bruce Vilanch. So for Bruce Vilanch, welcome, and now
Oh,
say something, do something funny, be hilarious.
I'm a charter member of Congregation Bette Midler,
There you go. Yeah,
which is the first gay synagogue. Actually, it was. We try not to boast, but there we were.
Congregation
Before
Bette
we
Midler.
were ahead of the curve.
And he's sort of joking, but he really, I mean, he helped Bette get her start, and Bette helped him get his start because you were writing jokes for her when she was coming up through the baths and things.
That's true. That's true. It was 50, only 50 years. Excuse me, I have to clutch my heart. Yes, yeah.
Let's
I
all
mean,
hold our tits right now.
we look back at it and we go, 50 years we've been doing this. 50 years I've known you.
So,
It's
and are you
wonderful.
still in touch
Yeah.
with her? You're still good
Oh
friends?
yeah, we're still doing it. We're still working as much as she works as much as she wants to work. I mean,
Do
she's a
you,
big star. So
considering that how many years you've had in the business and the high level gigs, I mean, you were on the Hollywood Squares as the center secret, whatever square there in the middle.
I wound up being a center square for a while. Yeah, I was most of the time I was to the left of Whoopi, if that's possible, up on your screen.
I get that joke.
Uh, and then she left, and I was in and out because I was doing Hairspray then. But they cast about for a center square, and I had it for a while, and then I went off to do Hairspray, and Ellen came in. Ellen was a center square towards the end, believe it or not, and Brad Garrett. They would trade off, and now it's coming back, and it's just weird because Drew Barrymore is going to be the center square. It'll be on CBS starting next January. I know it's weird because she's not funny. I
She's
mean,
lovable, but no, a
she's
hilarious.
adorable,
Yeah,
adorable, but you need somebody in that position who
you
can
need a
just kind of
John Wayne Gacy, I think.
come in with a line, with a joke, with a zinger, uh,
Yeah.
and that's not Drew. So it will be interesting to see how it works. It may be a kinder, gentler Hollywood Squares. Who knows?
Or you may get a phone call from Drew Barrymore's people saying, "We need some material. Could you? Could you? Could you?"
That would be odd. Yeah, could
Well,
happen.
now, how much are you currently working? Because you're still a working comedy writer and comedy doer. No.
I'm working, but I'm not writing for other people too much. I mean, because I haven't done a lot of the award shows I used to do all the time. I've been kind of aged out of that. But I wrote a book which will be out the first quarter of 25, which will in the run up to the Oscars, and it's about. I During COVID, I did a lot of these podcasts, and these kids, much younger than you and I, would ask me about these pieces of shit TV shows that I wrote in the 70s, and they'd seen them online, the Star Wars Holiday Special and the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, and they said, "How did this happen?" So I've written a book about how I wrote the worst shows in television history and lived, and it's called "It Seemed Like a Bad Idea at the Time,"
No, hold on.
and it is.
No, but here's the deal. You were involved in these things, and yes, I have seen the Paul Lynde Halloween special and marveled at it. But when people mock them and make fun of them, do you sort of stand apart and say, "No, wait, some of the sketches were pretty cute, or I had some good lines in there," or do you just, "Hey, I was well paid, it was shit"? Where do you
Well,
stand?
I do both. I mean, because both are true. I was well paid and it was shit, but there are some funny lines and some great moments in them. There's no question about it. They're there. You just have to parse them. And that's kind of what the book does. The book parses the good stuff from the bad stuff. But more than that, it explains how these things actually occur, the confluence of networks and stars and writers and images and icons and all of that. And it's great fun. And the last chapter is the first Oscar show I wrote, which was the Rob Lowe Dancing with Snow White Oscars.
Ah, yes.
The famous, the Alan Carr Oscars, which have faded a bit in memory, but when because when people discovered, I mean, I think they may have cut the opening number on the archival tape.
Well, no, see, what Alan Carr should have punched Rob Lowe in the face and said something about his girlfriend, and then then we would remember it.
Then you would have had. Was that a Rob story? I didn't know. But the reason why it lived in infamy was 2 weeks after the show, when the lawsuit from Disney died down about the use of Snow White, because there was no grounding for it because Snow White's in the public domain. The Rob Lowe sex tape surfaced.
Oh.
And so it was on, a Rob Lowe he went to the Democratic convention, you should pardon the expression, Dukakis convention. And he planked a 17-year-old girl and videoed it. And so it was all over the place. And this is pre-internet, this was before social media, really. It wasn't pre-internet, but it was pre-social media, what I call keyboard warfare. But it was everywhere, and all the newscasts said, Rob Lowe most recently seen Dancing with Snow White in the controversial Oscar number. So that cemented the show in the Hall of Shame. So, which is good for me, because I got to, ultimately, 40 years later, I get to write about it.
But did you write the lyrics, or did you write that number, or were you just writing jokes for the
No,
rest
it was Proud Mary. It was Creedence Clearwater.
Yeah, so you're only tainted by association, if you will.
Yeah. Well, my name was on the show, but I had nothing to do with that number. That number was imported from San Francisco from a show called Beach Blanket Babylon, which was a big tourist attraction in San Francisco.
For years. Yeah.
And then it was for years. And it was augmented by Rob Lowe and a few other elements. I mean, he was surrounded by golden age movie stars. Unfortunately, many of them had been brought in from the home in Woodland Hills, and they were not as you remembered them. So there was that sort of shock and awe from not only people watching at home, but other people in the audience who actually knew them, saying, "Oh my God, I had no idea."
Yeah, people if they had done Dylan's Forever Young, people would be like, no. God. But
yeah.
Now, since you're able and willing, obviously, to talk about embarrassing moments and things like that, I lost my other yarmulke. Shit.
I win.
You're directly responsible for a skit I didn't see but have heard about, involving the woman that you mentioned, Whoopi Goldberg, and at that point, her boyfriend or husband, whatever it was, Ted Danson. So did that seem like a good idea at the time?
Well, it seemed like a great idea at the time, but we didn't because it was to be a traditional Friars Club roast, and those were private, and the audience, while not small, was limited to people who were in the Friars and their friends. They were all show business types, and they knew what they were getting, because the tradition of the roast. I mean, what the general public thought a roast was what Dean Martin was doing on TV, where people came up and did these canned remarks and pretended, because generally there were audio tapes of the roasts. What nobody realized was how freewheeling those roasts are, and we had no reason to believe this was going to be anything but. But unbeknownst to us, the Friars Club moved it to the ballroom of the Hilton and sold seats to the public, who were not prepared for what a Friars Club roast was. And so they were shocked. And of course, the people who were on the dais, who were expecting it to be a room full of friars and fellow travelers, suddenly realized that they were in the presence of the public, and their public persona was in danger. So they had to pretend to be shocked and outraged.
Wow.
And I felt bad for Ted, because once you're on stage in blackface, you kind of are committed. You can't say, "Excuse me, I'll just get me the Alboline, I'll be right back." So I felt bad. And the reason they did it was that they had decided to break up, but they'd committed to this already. And they decided to make this their sort of farewell. and they were going to get back at the 3 years of vitriol and hatred that had been directed at them on a daily basis by racists, and they decided they would top them at their own game and do every racist joke to say, you see, you can't insult us.
Because we're
We
doing
are
it
hip
first.
to who we are and what you hate. And that was the idea. And the Friars would have gotten it if it had been in the usual setting, but it wasn't.
As a
And
matter,
so
let me
that
ask
was
you, if they had done that a year or two after Gilbert did the 9/11 jokes at the Friars, would people have suddenly been like, "Oh, this is the good for them, go for it"? But it was just the timing, you know.
I mean, who can say? I don't know what the temperature was exactly right after. I mean, obviously Gilbert got into some trouble over that, but I think that also already had more media coverage than the Friars had ever had before. So that was probably why. I mean, the Comedy Central does roasts that come closer to what the old Friars roasts were, but they're still, fairly tame, and everybody knows they're on TV, and so they're sort of, on good behavior. At the old traditional Friars roast, people got drunk and crazy, and and jokes that I mean, unbelievable depths of humor.
What was like one of the early Friar roasts that you attended, where you heard something from like Henry Fonda or something? You're like, "Oh my god!"
Well, it wasn't. I'm trying to remember. I remember Johnny Carson. It would come on, and I just remember a straight thing. He said he followed somebody. And he said, "Thank you. That was as funny as Kate Smith taking a douche." That was his opener.
And, yeah, that's
So
a
I
funny
mean,
line, but it's funny coming from him.
yeah, I mean, you have to know who Kate Smith was. You have to know the whole. She was well past ever needing to take a douche.
Well, was it George Carlin who talked about taking aerial shots of Kate Smith? Or I don't know where that line came from.
Yeah. Oh, there were many. Kate Smith was a very kind of bawdy vaudevillian. She did somersaults in her act in the old days, but she had become this huge bosomed figure of America. God Bless America was her signature song, and so she was like everybody's maiden aunt, who was uh, a big-hearted, patriotic, wholesome,
Like,
clean living woman. But of course, she really had not been that in her earlier days.
she's like Margaret Dumont for real. Like, I
Yeah,
remember,
exactly.
like Margaret.
No, Margaret Dumont was a parody of upper class Park Avenue, and the snootier she got, the funnier it was to watch the Marx Brothers take her down because they represented the Lower East Side.
No, actually, yes,
Yeah.
that's a great explanation. No, but also, I mean, any other Friar roast memories that we would not have been a party to that you might have? Queen Elizabeth,
Yeah,
Queen
memories.
Elizabeth's
I mean, I
50th
didn't
party.
go. I mean, I didn't go a lot, but because I was too young to. But I remember I can't remember what was said, but like the Bruce Willis's roast when he was hot on Moonlighting, and they uh, I can't remember. I honestly can't remember. But there were lots of pussy jokes, lots of fart jokes. I mean, lots of really bathroom stuff, and racism didn't enter into it. I mean, because that kind of like was a given. If you were black, they could make jokes about being black. If you were Jewish, you made jokes about being Jewish and cheap. If you were Italian, you made jokes about being a coward and being messy, and I mean, all groups had their traditional, for want of a better word, slurs that were. If you were Polish, you were dumb. It was
Yeah.
that. All of that has evaporated with political correctness
Right. Well, let me
and
ask,
and
have
and
you ever
wokeness.
been, we're talking with Bruce Vilanch here, have you ever been offended by a joke? Or a joke's a joke?
Well, I suppose I have been, but I think everything in context. It's not so much a joke as a joke, but if the context of something explains why it's funny, and some things just don't. Things that are just out there just don't. as jokes that don't necessarily have a context aren't necessarily funny. But I also think the reaction to think, listen, I'm a member of several minorities myself, so when they come after my minorities, I can bristle a bit, but sometimes it's because they're not funny. They're just they're bad jokes. It's like Pauline Kael wrote about movies. She said movies are not depressing. Bad movies are depressing. She said, good movies about serious subjects are not depressing. Judgment at Nuremberg is not depressing. It's a good movie about a hard subject.
Right. I mean, there are some movies that leave you intentionally in the dumps, or some horror movies where you go like,
yeah, you're being thoughtful, and you're moved by them, and you're affected by them. If you're only left in the dumps, then they haven't done their job. That's bad art.
Now, let me also ask you. Speaking of bad art turned legendary, do you have any stories about doing? I mean, you mentioned the kind of ridiculous ABC sort of specials that they slammed together for variety in like the 1970s and 80s. But I've got to know how, and I'm sure you write about it in your upcoming book, how Kiss, Paul Lynde, Margaret Hamilton, am I missing anybody for Florence Henderson? I mean, how?
Sure. Roz Kelly, Betty White, Tim Conway, they were all on the show.
It was, well, I get Tim Conway.
Pretty load of people.
Sense,
well, it was a Halloween show. I mean, first of all, it was Paul had an exorbitant deal at the ABC to do specials because they realized that he was not the centerpiece of a weekly sitcom, but he was somebody you could build a special around. And the first special was kind of him just in sketches, but then they had to find a theme to keep these things going. And you can't really do the Paul Lynde. Well, you could do the Paul Lynde Christmas special, but it would sort of be anti-Christmas. But Halloween was perfect because he was also already playing a witch. He was Uncle Arthur on Bewitched. So there was that way in, and which we actually wound up not using, but that was the initial way in. We just made it about Paul, and we didn't want to make it about Uncle Arthur. Also because Uncle Arthur was somebody else's IP. It was from Bewitched, and we didn't own it, so we couldn't use it. But it is what inspired. But the idea of Halloween and other witches were brought into play. So Margaret Hamilton, the Wicked Witch of the West, and Billy Hayes, who was Witchy Poo on H&R Puff and stuff, they came into play as they wound up being sort of relatives of his. With unbeknownst. It's a long story, and then they for Halloween. He's very unhappy about Halloween, and his housekeeper, who's actually the Wicked Witch of the West, wants to convince him Halloween is a good thing. So she and her sister grant him wishes, and then each of these wishes is a sketch that leads to other things. Each of those sketches involves a guest star, and Kiss is just they're there for no reason. He's having a Halloween party, and Kiss is the entertainment.
Yeah.
They like Kiss.
Could have been anybody.
And Kiss was at the height of their fame. They had just had a #1 record. Curiously enough, for all of the smoke and fire and tongue wagging, the #1 record was Bette, a ballad.
I remember. I mean, I go back far
enough. With a guy at the piano, all dressed up at the piano, playing piano. Beth, I hear you calling, and that was their #1 record. So of course we had to do that in the show. Plus they had to do a Kiss number with dry ice and flames and all of that pyro. So, and the idea of having them was, of course, to attract the younger demographic, which is what the advertisers are always looking for, because they would like to hook you when you're young. They'd like to sell you a Chrysler when you're a kid so that you'll buy a Chrysler for the rest of your life.
But
they are bleak.
You knew what you were getting at. In other words, you were hired to do this. And as you said, there are things you're proud of and things that, why doesn't something like that work out? Why do people make fun of it? I mean, you're there, you're right.
Well, because it's ridiculous. I mean,
yeah.
It's ridiculous, but this was the 70s, and a lot of the audience was watching it was chemically altered to begin with. and a lot of the people who were creating it were chemically altered. So it seemed like a good idea at the time, and of course it was a bad idea. We knew it was a bad idea. Although the idea of a Pauline Halloween special, it
Makes
was just the
sense.
way it was the way it blossomed, and also, Paul was always a weird character. I mean, he was all punchlines. It was,
Yeah.
and so he was showcased best on Hollywood Squares because he would come in and do the joke and get out. On this show, he had to play characters, and a little of him went a long way. He was a flavor,
Hmm.
and they stretched it with an hour. I mean, the reason that he wanted desperately to be a movie star, like the people he came up with in New York, Woody Allen and Mel Brooks, they became movie stars, but he didn't. As he was a good writer, but he didn't write movies for himself. He didn't really write his own material. He wrote a little bit,
Yeah,
but
he was a bigger guy. Was he sober or was he manageable?
well, he'd have one drink because that would loosen him up. But we made sure he didn't have two drinks because then he would kind of become the Nazi high command. Suddenly, he was, everybody was the enemy, and the slurs would fly.
Oh,
He was not a happy guy. He was not a happy guy. He was happy when they turned the light on and he was on, and then the moment the light was off, he was not.
now let me
Everything
ask
was.
you about a totally different kind of personality, but also someone who has a reputation of being prickly. One of the Oscars that you wrote for was hosted by Letterman, and I
I was
imagine.
just going to say, Dave was exactly the same. Although there was no substance abuse. Dave Dave was only happy when he was on, and when he was the moment the lights went off, he was critical of himself, and nothing was good. And that was his personality. He was kind of sour. And at a certain point, you began to say maybe this is the pose he has adopted because he is allowed not to show real feelings. And when he would actually, he would go up when his son was born, and he went on his show and he talked about it, and it was so sincere, it was beautiful. The audience didn't know what to make of it, but he was being, and I said, well, this is the real him that he's afraid to show because he has made his reputation on being this kind of laconic oddball who hides behind this grumpy old man persona.
Now let me ask you. I'm guessing that Bette Midler is not like that. I'm guessing that she is a sweetie 99% of the time. Am I right? 98.
Yeah, well, she always says that she's really a librarian at heart, and the fact that she's a scholar and an academician, and she's uh, the divine Miss M was a portion, one facet of her character that we blossomed into a stage character, but that's not who she is all the time. And I don't know that anybody is who they are. The only person I know who always was on was Richard Simmons. I mean, even when he was off, he was on. I mean, he's an extreme guy,
Yeah.
and all the emotions are big, and he never quiets down. So it was always, I mean, I liked him, and I had worked with him over the years, but when he could no longer be Richard Simmons, he just retired.
Yeah.
He physically couldn't do all that stuff that he had to do to be Richard Simmons, so he just stepped back away from it. And every now and again, he'll say something, but it's not nearly at the level at which he used to project.
No. I mean, He's presumed a recluse. We hope that
Yeah,
the tweets that he sends out are even his. I mean, have you been in touch with him in the last 10 years?
yeah, a little bit, just a
So he's
little bit.
alive and well. He's okay.
Yeah, I mean, there was a Harvey Levin did a documentary, one of those TMZ, the first of those TMZ documentaries on whatever happened to, and I was on it, and I heard from Richard after that. He was happy with it. I
You
mean,
heard directly from him, like a
yeah, yeah,
podcast.
yeah. And then on this one, I think with the Paulie Shore thing, I think that's him.
Mm.
I think he's saying, no, I don't know if he's saying he doesn't like Paulie Shore or doesn't want Paulie playing him, or he's saying, I don't want anybody playing me. I thought
Yeah.
because Richard always wanted to play himself. He always was playing himself. We wrote a musical, which was really funny with Earl Brown, who was a wonderful composer and lyricist, this is 40 years ago when he was at his height, and we couldn't get it done because he wanted to do it. He didn't want anybody playing him.
Oh,
And the Broadway people just said, well, we don't know that he can do this 8 times a week, and this we're going to invest a lot of money in this, and we're just not sure. We're not sure that he actually has these skills on on stage. And
if he's taping like 3-4 shows a day on TV with that energy of exercising, he could probably.
Well, yeah, but that's it's not a book show, I mean, there's a certain kind of performer uh, who gets crazy because they feel trapped in the script. And there are famous stories about Zero Mostel and Buddy Hackett, Sammy Davis. I mean, these are guys who went off book a lot. They were the stars of their shows, but they would improvise, they would do stuff, and it would hurt the show.
No, but you
And
can
eventually,
design.
they would also get tired of doing that, and they would buy themselves out of the show.
No, but
So I think that they were looking at that, thinking, well, we don't know who this guy really is, and it's a lot of money to invest in, and I don't think we weren't going to do it any place first. It wasn't like we were going to take it to London, which is what everybody does now.
well, you could bring it to Texas, to Tuts in Houston, or you
Oh,
could
yeah, well,
the Flagler
yeah,
Center.
exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of a tryout, you do a regional production at one of these places. So I'm playing with my hair because it's my hair.
Good for you. By the way,
I've written during COVID. I wrote a show with Dolly Parton using her catalog. It's a musical called "Here You Come Again," and it's about a 40-year-old gay guy, comedian who's never made it, and he's working as a waiter at Caroline's Comedy Club in New York. And the pandemic hits, and his relationship breaks up, and because they're too close, and he has to quarantine in the attic of his parents' home in Longview, Texas, where he has an intimate relationship with his imaginary friend, Dolly Parton. She steps out of a poster. So it's the two of them and 5 musicians. And we are doing it. We open next week in Leeds. We did 5 regional productions around America in the last year and a half. And now we're doing 6 months touring in the UK, and then we'll open in London in December. So, and if it works, perhaps it will come over.
Yeah, who's in the cast there right now? I mean, the English.
You don't know them,
right?
Yeah. Dolly is played by an actress named Trisha Paoluccio, who is a Broadway actress who played the Dolly role in the 9 to 5 musical in a couple of different places, and in another show called Always Patsy Cline. And we've had several actors play opposite her, and currently we have a Brit, and we've anglicized the show because it makes it to make it a bit more accessible to the British audience. Where, of course, she's a huge star over there, but our other character isn't, and he has to be a kind of an average guy trying to be a comic. So, and if it comes back, we will do the American version. But we had a good time. We did the American version in 6 different regional theaters, and we had a great time doing it. And it was a hit everywhere we took it.
Oh, Mazel. And Dolly signed off. How much?
Dolly, I didn't think we did it on a whim, and we got a grant, a PPP grant, and then I had to go to her for the music rights, and I'd worked with her before, and she loved it. I didn't think she would. I think she would just shoot it down, but she loved it, and she's our partner, and she's zooming like crazy, looking at it every night. So.
Can I ask how much further experience? Because I know you did an off-Broadway solo show about 20 years ago. How much? Yeah. What other theater experience do you have writing in terms of book musicals or plays that didn't get?
Well, I have another chapter in the show, since I couldn't just do the television shows.
Yeah.
That were a bad idea. I extended it to Broadway. I did 2 things that it seemed like a bad idea at the time. Although they didn't. I mean, that's my joke, but I did a musical called Platinum in 1978 that ran 112 performances. No, 33 performances. No, another one ran 33 performances, and that starred Alexis Smith, who was very hot on Broadway at the time, but was not as hot as we thought, or we would have had a bigger advance sale, which might have helped us overcome some dismal reviews. but it was a mess. I mean, it was, and I detail how these things fall apart. Things fall apart. So I had that, and I had I'd come in on a couple of other shows where doctoring is a great business. I've doctored a lot. A lot of people come in and they rewrite, and you don't get credit, but you get paid, and and sometimes you do the stuff that makes the show a hit. Sometimes it's just other stuff that you collaborate. There are a lot of big movies have writers' rooms. They'll have a writer. They'll bring in for a day. They'll bring in 7 writers because they need some jokes. They want to reshoot stuff, or they want to dub stuff because they need a couple of laughs in it. And it's not just the comedies. It's things that science fiction that needs comic relief. It's all kinds of stuff that you get called in on. So it's a cottage industry.
And it's probably built you a cottage or two, or at least pays your New York rent or LA rent. But let me ask, can you, and if you can't say, you can't say, but what might be a line that you added or finessed to either a movie or a Broadway show?
Oh my God. Well, this is one of my favorite is Child's Play 2, which was Chucky.
Yeah.
They wanted a line. They wanted Chucky to say something funny after one of the murders, which was somebody who, of course, had mistreated him as a doll, and he gets back by killing him. And he finishes this lavish stabbing spree, and he looks at the camera and says, "Don't fuck with the Chuck."
That's
It was
in
a
the
huge
moment.
laugh.
Yeah.
They tested it, and it was a huge laugh at the screening. So that's my line. Don't fuck with the Chuck.
And it stayed in.
It's
They brought
it did. It stated it may be in all of the Chuck. I don't think it's in the Chucky TV series.
probably not. No, not
Probably
the
not, but which is now on the Sci-Fi Channel. But I think it made its way into a lot of the other sequels. I have to confess, I haven't seen them all. I did see Bride of Chucky because Jennifer Tilly was in it, and it just cracked me up that she was there with this doll. She's such a good actress, and she's so game. She's she'll play.
Besides Bette Midler, who's like the famous most person that you've loved working with or for or writing for?
Well, Whoopi. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I love Whoopi. I love Billy Crystal. I love those four: Nathan Lane, Robin Williams. Those are Shirley MacLaine. Those are at the top. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people. I don't dislike people too much. I mean, if you don't get along with them, you just kind of stop. It's a collaboration that doesn't benefit anybody. So, but I haven't had too many of those because we just laugh and move on.
But no, it's lovely to hear it. And I thought you might say Diana Ross, maybe. You had a nice.
Well, I had a great time with her. I don't see her that much, but yeah, we had a fabulous time. She wasn't difficult at all. I mean, and in fact, I ran into her.
Yeah.
I ran into her on a plane, and Randy Tabarelli had written a book called "Call Me Miss Ross," and it was all about. It was kind of a hatchet job, and it was about how she mistreated this one and that one. And so I was on a plane, and I had just read the book, and so I went over to her, and I said, I just read the book, and I said, I never called you Miss Ross. And she looked at me and she said, I've been meaning to speak to you about that.
Wow, she topped you. Look at that. That's
Yeah.
a great line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she was totally aware of all that, but she's fairly zen.
That's great. Can I ask? And I know the answer is going to be no, but it might be a finessey no. Is there a formula to writing a joke?
I'm sure there is. I don't know what it is, but I've never broken it down. I mean, it's beyond setup and punchline, and you like to find something that takes a left turn, and the joke is you didn't expect that was what it was going to be. But I mean, I don't know that there's an actual formula. I think that just it kind of appears in nature. I mean, probably somebody who teaches a class somewhere has broken this down and has, this is this kind of a joke, and has names for each of these things, but I kind of stayed away from that. I was too busy working.
Right, but I'm kind of like you're stuck in let's say the writers' room at the Oscars, and
Yeah.
something happens that morning. President Obama, drops a cup of coffee or something. So it's on, and we need a joke about Obama.
Well, it can happen during the show, and something happens on the show.
Right? Yeah.
But I don't think you are thinking about formulas at that point. I think you're just thinking of what's funny, and then you analyze it afterwards, or you don't, which I haven't spent a whole lot of time analyzing. If it works, it works.
But you also the thing that you straddle the line with is like a lot of playwrights and they're writing for character. So the comedy comes from that
Yeah.
that actor. You sometimes have to do that, but you just have to write sometimes straight up jokes that anybody can tell. That's gonna be
Well,
tougher, no?
I try not to write straight up jokes that anybody can tell. I try to write specifically for people or for characters, and once you understand somebody's timing and their point of view, you get to actually you write something that's usable. If you just you can hand somebody a joke and they can convert it into their language more or less. But I've never written anything like just just me. I mean, I always wrote for somebody specifically. I mean, Joan Rivers had a voice. Johnny Carson had a voice. They all the good ones, the ones who all have voices. It's the ones who just I don't know, just decide that they're going to comment on things, but they have no persona. So what happens is when you get on a show like the Oscars and you bring out an actor who doesn't have a comic persona or even a public persona, and you want to give him you want him to be funny and engaging. That's the most difficult because you don't know who they really are, and you so you want to write something that is specific to the category they're involved in, and try and make it if they can pull off something amusing about art direction or cinematography or sound or documentary or something, or it's sometimes you can't do that, and you just have to give them something straight to just say.
I got funniest jokes ever written. Gaffers. Oh my god, just gaffer jokes, hilarious.
Yeah,
Love it. And best boy jokes. Can't
really just kind of well, I always say Johnny. The first time Johnny Depp was on the Oscars, he said, "I don't know how to do this. I don't know. I don't have the character." And so I said, "Well, why don't you do something between kind of come out like your Captain Jack Sparrow. It was the first year of Pirates, or mixed with Hunter Thompson, and just kind of do it that way. And it doesn't matter what you actually say. The character will be funny. The idea that you are this guy presenting this award, and he liked that, and he wound up doing it a lot on talk shows, where that would because he didn't want to reveal Johnny Depp. Not so much anymore. Now, of course, he does want people to see Johnny Depp because he's been through the trial and he's been, vilified and all this stuff. So he wants people to know he's not really a crazy person. But there's a great craziness to him. I mean, there's a hysterical streak.
Well, there's a great craziness to all of us, including you, Bruce.
Hmm.
So I want to remind people I hope you can give us a couple of more minutes because I just
Yeah.
love talking. But I do want to tell people first of all the book that's coming because you had a book a while back called Bruce My Adventures.
I booked 20 years ago. Yeah, when I was on Hollywood Squares.
So
when you're on TV every night, you get lots of weird offers.
I'm sure you did.
They ask you to do all kinds of things.
But what is the new book? The new book is called, and when is it due? By
it seemed like a bad idea at the time.
Seemed like a bad idea at the time.
You, right after Christmas.
Of 24. So
it'll be coming in first quarter of 25 in the run up to the Oscars. It'll be because there'll be many of those kinds of stories in the book.
And then you've also got Here You Come Again, the Dolly Parton based.
Dolly Parton musical. If you're in the UK, please go see it. Well, if you're watching this in the British Isles.
Well, yeah, right. They could watch this from any. Not that anybody's actually watching this, but they could. If they choose, they could wind up watching this.
That's right.
And they should, because you're hilarious. So let me also ask you, though, as a Jew person, you are a Jew person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how how's it been in this current time, in terms of being funny and things you can joke about and things you can't joke about? And well, I mean, we talked a little bit about politically
Well,
correct.
it's a minefield generally. I mean, it started with woke and George Floyd and Me Too, and it's extended to almost everything else. So it's very difficult. I mean, what's happening now is well, it's crazy, but you. I mean, I don't think you can't go near it. There's nothing funny about it. So it's really not worth going near.
Well, wait, will time change in 2 years? Will we be able to make time
Well,
plus
time,
tragedy equals
that
hilarity or something like that?
the definition of comedy is tragedy plus time.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, I reworked it
So
a little bit
exactly.
algorithmically, but you got it there. That's
Yeah.
it.
I
So
mean, I remember when Titanic was nominated for Best Picture, and we were doing this film thing with Billy Crystal and all that, and somebody said, "Well, can we make jokes about this? A lot of people died in the Titanic," and I said, "It was 1912. Too soon."
yeah, too soon has
I
become
mean, we're not making fun of the fact that they were making fun of this movie, but it's always, I mean, it's. I mean, you
yeah.
mentioned Hiroshima, and people go, "Ooh," and I say, "Too soon."
It's like
I mean, at a certain point, yeah, but I mean, it's not now while the coals are hot.
well, yeah, but no, those dinosaurs, the way they froze to death, it's just like, hey, no, don't do so.
Right.
It's like, yeah, yeah. Let me also ask: do you have how Jewish do you consider yourself? Are you
On
you
a scale of
raised?
one to five,
Well, do you feel it? Do you celebrate the holidays? Do you? What's your
I'm a tribal Jew. I'm not observant, but I'm a tribal Jew. And there are certain things I observe because they come from my childhood, yard side candles and things like that. But I'm not kosher for Passover. I'm not kosher at all. We never were kosher.
that doesn't look
I
like a
don't.
kosher
I don't
sandwich on your
because I
shirt.
don't go to shul anymore. I mean, I went through a period when I was a teenager of being very observant. I went to Israel on the U.S.-wide pilgrimage. I was deeply into all of that, and but things change as you get older.
So, are you spiritual now, or you're just
I am spiritual.
comforts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. I think I believe in science. I believe in ethics, and I think those are the important things.
But did
Uh,
being Jewish influence your comedy, the way you write a
oh, of
joke, your
course,
timing, or your yeah?
course. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's the way you deliver things. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up in an atmosphere of Catskill comics. So sure, that influences heavily. And of course, being Jewish generally and being gay is, you're a member of two outside groups and in some cases outlaw groups. And so you're on the outside looking in. You're Stella Dallas looking in at the wedding that you can't attend. So that always colors things. It just always colors things. And you see the worst and you make the best out of it. There's a line from Robert Shaw wrote The Man in the Glass Booth about Eichmann, a drama, and one of Eichmann's lines, which he may have actually said, or Robert Shaw wrote, is gallows humor, the hallmark of the Jew, which is, as you're going to the gallows, you're cracking wise because
Absolutely. Yeah.
there's nothing. I mean, and since we are always en route to the gallows in one way or the other, we're finding the best in the situation by laughing at it.
And I mean that also you brought it up also that you are and have been an out gay person really since
Yeah.
I guess the 70s and 80s. What was that? Were you joking through the AIDS era or just crying through? I mean, what got you through
Oh, well, we're
that?
doing both. You can't, you can't lose your sense of humor, but it was a terrible time. I mean, it was lost. I remember my grandmother, who was losing her friends. She was like the age I am now, I guess, and she was losing her friends. And I said, I feel the same way you do. And she said, yes, yeah, but it's natural at my age. At your age, it's an unnatural occurrence. So we were all dealing with this thing that we weren't supposed to be dealing with for many years. And one of the ways of dealing with it was by laughing and by making jokes.
And,
there
and
was
honest, and again, it brings up the humor because when
yeah,
COVID came around and everybody started losing older people, you say, I lived through AIDS. This is nothing. Which
right,
is
yeah.
technically, there you go.
One of the AIDS jokes, which I don't know if it means anything more, but what is the biggest problem with having AIDS? Convincing your parents that you're Haitian.
Remember that one? That's funny. And you know what
Yeah,
was funny at the time? It
because
was the
Haiti was the epicenter of the epidemic back then.
Mom, did you know I was a hemophiliac? Guess what? It's boom.
Guess what? Yeah, right. So
That was, yeah. But even
that was
then, it was funny even during the time. I mean, if the joke
yeah.
is right, it doesn't matter that you're in the epicenter of the.
Well, it was a joke on a joke. In other words, you could say it wasn't because I'm gay; it's because I'm Haitian.
Right, I
You know
guess.
that.
Yeah, exactly. So, how is your life now? I mean, I don't want to get too personal, but are you dating? Are you a part of a couple? Are you married? I don't know. You're.
No, I travel single.
Oh, I love.
Uh, yeah, right. From Funny Girl. Um, no, I'm not. I haven't been part of a couple for a long time. So, I live in LA, so it's not conducive to that. It is for some people, but at this point in my life, it's
All right,
I was
and I know we're running short on time here, but since you brought up Funny Girl, you have written for Barbara.
yeah.
And now the gay people are tuned in because we've been talking about them, so we got to talk about Barbara. So here's the deal. And at one point, what she turned you turned her down or something like that, or is that story?
She turned it down because she didn't offer enough money, and I told her to sell a lamp because she was selling all her furniture from her old house. And I told the story in this movie, a documentary about me called Get Bruce. And she got very offended because the movie came out in the same week that there were three other stories about her and her cheapness. And it's been 20 years, and I'm up to page 3045 in her memoir, and she hasn't mentioned it yet. And Vanity Fair did me the favor of creating an index to the book, which they publish, and I'm not in the index, so I'm assuming she doesn't mention it.
But
So
you
I'm
wrote for her. You did
so,
end
so
up writing.
clearly it's water under the bridge.
Okay. No, but you did end up writing jokes for her and stuff. I'm wondering what's a joke you
I
wrote.
had always written for free for benefits, and she wanted me to write. This was her comeback, her return to live performing tour that she did with HBO, and it's a long story, but it's not in the book because I'm done with. I lived that episode, and it's not about it was a bad idea. Uh, it doesn't fit in with all of that. It's for the next book. But
Oh.
since she left me out of her book, I think I'll leave her out of mine.
And by the way, let's remind people that that book it seems like a bad idea at the time, which is going to be coming out just around, you might call it Christmas. No, we both call it Hanukkah time. Coming out around Hanukkah time into the early part of the new year, the Shana Tova that will have, the American Shana Tova. Plus, if you happen to be, even if you're not in London, take a plane. Get on a plane, get somewhere, and go to London and Leeds and wherever this thing's going to be all over, like the UK.
All over the place.
All over it. I'm doing like Dolly Parton's
We'll be connecting dots all over the island.
all over the island. See the show. Here you come again. Last question for you, Bruce. Do you have one or two of the best one-liners or not a one-liner or jokes that you've written for any capacity for anyone, like your favorite, like you're so proud of them?
Oh my God. Proud? Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the famous one is I gave Bette Midler the Sophie Tucker jokes and wrote a whole bunch of those and resuscitated some that she never told. And one of them became her big signature joke, which was, I will never forget it. I was in bed with my boyfriend Ernie. He said to me, Soph, you've got no tits and a tight box. I said to him, Ernie, get off my back.
That is classic.
It's a dirty joke without a well, it has a semi-dirty word, but
it's dirty enough, but
dirty
funny enough. That's the point. And boy, what a funny, wonderful person we have had with us in the neighborhood. Thank you.
All
Toda
right.
Rabba to Bruce
Well,
Vilanch.
all right. Take care.
Shalom.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Shalom.